Thank you. And thank you for those warm words, and particularly the purchase that paid for my breakfast. I think you're due another one now. I've got a family to feed, you know. I wanted to show you that video at the start because, as the cliche goes, that's what it's all about. And Betty's views echoed across the land, and I can tell you that because every school I've ever visited, as a little test, I always say, hands up if you rode to school. And you get one or two, and everybody looks around, and a couple of hands go up. Then you say, hands up who'd like to be able to ride and scoot to school. And all the hands up go up. And I've done that with Andy Burnham when I worked for him in Greater Manchester as Transport Commissioner, and it is so powerful to see the kids. And we are, and I'm avoiding a Michael Jackson quote here, but we are custodians of their future. We are building and creating cultures that they will very soon inherit. And I think their voice needs to be loud in this. Now, most kids can't ride to school because their parents don't feel it's safe enough to let them. And in many cases, they're quite right. So it's become a self-fulfilling problem that we've got. It's less safe, therefore I'll run you to school. There's more cars, it's less safe, and we status quo continues. There are nearly 10 billion more miles being driven around our homes and schools now than there were just 10 years ago. And at rush hour, certainly in urban areas, the traffic is made up of 20% of the ironically named school run. Result, the UK has the least active children in Europe, with obesity levels rising. 1 in 4 primary school kids is now leaving school obese. And of course, they carry, literally and figuratively, that burden and those habits with them into adulthood. 1 in 6 deaths is due to inactivity now. That's more than smoking. 40,000 people die each year due to poor air quality in the UK. 29,000 people are killed or seriously injured on our roads. 15.7 billion has been added to annual borrowing due to long-term sickness through inactivity. So you can see why the OBR identified that moving more will reduce borrowing and boost the economy. It's all very sad, and I wasn't here to make you sad. I'm supposed to be the closest you've got to light entertainment between you and coffee. But I'm here to say, excitingly for me, that this is eminently fixable. This is doable. The solutions are actually really well known. So, we've got that picture, yeah. A friend of mine took this, and I've used it all through last year. It was taken 212 miles from the seat of our decision makers in Westminster, on the outskirts of Amsterdam, a little place called Arnhem. And it's just an ordinary picture. Now have a look at it. I love this because of its ordinariness. It is just 2 girls. I don't know where they're going, but they're clearly relaxed, sharing a joke. This is clearly normal, everyday stuff for them. And they look pretty healthy to me as well. 75% of Dutch kids get around in this way every day. This is how they get to school. Not for their health. They do it because it's easy. They're just as lazy as our kids. This is how. This is just the easiest way for them to get around because it's been made normal. They have independence. Now, not only are their obesity levels, funnily enough, half of ours, they have access to more and interact more. Their parents' time is used differently. More on that in a moment. And it's not just Holland and Denmark, the normal go-tos for examples. Finland. Anybody know what the age of transport independence is? You're independent, you're able to travel alone in Finland. 7 years old. At 8 years old, you can cross a main junction. At 10 years old, you can get a bus. Now, I think if any of us see a 7-year-old walking down the street on their own, we'd be calling the police. It is culturally so different. Germany, I think Germany is 10-year-old. But that's all abroad. That's them. It's not us. We probably all agree, sitting here, that the destination is something we completely agree with, but we can see all the barriers in our way. It's so different, political, financial, cultural, and we can't conceive of the journey to get from where we are now to that destination. So we move on to thinking about our other problems, which are manifold, and the status quo continues. In fact, it's not the status quo, it's just slowly getting worse all the time. Well, in some places in the UK, we are already matching or beating the Dutch around schools. I think the word that popped out for me there was easy. It's just the easiest way, because that's how we're built. We will do the easiest thing, regardless of it's our own detriment long term. We do easy. And there was masses of spin-offs there. So I spoke to the head teacher, Miss Upton, and we had a little chat about it. And she said, yeah, it helps with bullying. And I said, what? And she said, well, it tends to happen after school. And I know, because I was on the thick end of this when I was at school, around bus stops and on buses where kids are effectively kettled with no adult supervision. But when you can come and go as you please, then it gives you a way to avoid all of that. And it's something I'd never even considered. And the people I was filming with all started going, yeah, that happened to me at school. Yes, I remember. And you don't realise the ripple effects of this are absolutely massive, or could be. So the national average, as you've just heard, is 37% of secondary students walk, only 4% ride to school. If Kesgrave kids followed that national average, there'd be 160,000 more miles being driven each year on local roads, and 8,000 hours of parents' time would be locked up ferrying them about, not to mention the increased costs of fuel for a household, and possibly even a second car. Initiatives like this exemplify how combining simple, targeted infrastructure, and I think you saw, it's not pretty stuff, it's not clever, it's just basic bits that join it together. Simple infrastructure, school buy-in, you saw the parking that was provided there by the school, and community support enhances lives much more widely than just that of the pupils. So let's extrapolate the other way with a little thought exercise, but staying well within the bounds of financial and political plausibility. If we take Kesgrave as an example, completely typical English suburb, and we extrapolate, 100 other schools were able to achieve the same outcomes, just 100, that's a fraction of a percent of the schools in this country. It would mean 41,500 more kids being active every day, and 16 million fewer car journeys on local roads at peak time. Slightly going out of fashion at the moment, but in terms of carbon, that's 3,500 tonnes of carbon saved as well. If we did it for 1,000 schools, which is about 5% of primary and secondary schools, it would mean nearly 500,000 children being more active every day, sustainably and normally, independent, and 160 million fewer car journeys every year. And imagine what the scale of an example like that would do to catalyse culture change. I wonder how many parents would start to say, why haven't I got that for my family? Which is why this conversation is so important. So what's the plan? You're probably expecting me to ask you to do something. Well, I know that like the NHS, overloaded school leaders are often asked to do an awful lot more and deal with problems that are not of their making. No, this is for us. This is for Active Travel England to sort, the local government to sort, the national government to sort. Now, I'm already going around the country speaking to mayors and leaders across the land on behalf of ministers. They want every pavement in England to be usable by a parent with a double buggy. They want children to have the freedom to stay at after-school clubs and have improved mental and physical health. And they want families to simply be safe enough to choose to travel under their own steam. The school run resonates with those leaders, and we are planning to act. In fact, we, Active Travel England, already are. 40% of the dedicated active travel funding that we spend is being used within 100 metres of a school now. Our mission is to connect every school with every park and every high street. And we want to catalyse local, joined-up action to create a national plan to build health back into our lives as standard, twice a day, every day. It's not complicated stuff, as we saw. It's crossings at the right place. We're working on an initiative now to try and just be allowed to put simple zebra crossings across the mouth of side roads, the desire line of for people to walk to school. Pavement parking control, basic maintenance that means footways are consistently and reliably usable. Speed control, school streets, which a lot of you are already involved with, a variety of measures that together create child safe zones by filling in the missing bits, the missing links to create coherent, family-friendly networks. Now, local leaders will work with those of you who are keen to push this forward, to enact these plans around schools across the country, to put these packages of measures in place with our help. And as well as infrastructure, we'll fund activation activities to give kids and families a reason to then try travelling differently. Walking buses, cycling buses, bikeability training, which is already being delivered to 500,000 kids every year, mode shift stars and wow programs to gamify the trip, especially for younger kids. Our early estimates are that this first phase, if you like, could quickly create about 3,000 miles of child-safe routes, to start with predominantly in city regions, with the intention of getting 1.6 million more people active, and in doing so, cut the need for 500,000 GP visits and returning 37 billion to the economic benefits. So back to the ask of you. Together, you know your voice is strong. It's respected by local leaders. It is listened to by national leaders. You're backing those local leaders who want to tackle this, to be brave and to lead. Those that want to give the Bettys of this world the ability to simply walk or scoot to school in safety will go a long way. Collectively, I think you have the power, and you've already shown today, the passion to help change a nation. And as you know, it can be a lot more than just the education itself. So I'm backing Betty, and I hope you will too. Thank you.